Big hair, neon spandex, cassette tapes. The 1980s gave us unforgettable moments, but let's be honest, some of it was downright cringe. From fashion trends that make us wince to inventions we'd rather forget, these are the 21 cringiest things from the 80s that somehow existed. You'll laugh, you'll groan, and you'll ask yourself, what were we thinking? 1. Shoulder pads that could stop a truck. They weren't just shoulder pads, they were weaponized fashion. In the 1980s, everyone from corporate executives to teen pop stars were stuffing their jackets with foam so wide you'd think they were prepping for a football game. It was all about power dressing, projecting dominance, confidence, and, unfortunately, bulk. Blazers, dresses, even t-shirts came with shoulder pads sewn in. And heaven forbid you wore 2 layers, you'd look like a linebacker in a board meeting. Looking back now, it's hard not to cringe at photos. What felt powerful in '85 now screams, "Help, I'm being swallowed by my own outfit." And yet, we kind of respect the commitment. 2. The Jerry curl explosion. If the 1980s had a mascot hairstyle, it might have been the Jerry curl, the wet, shiny, permed look that coated heads across America in greasy glory. Popularized by stars like Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie, the style was everywhere, from music videos to neighborhood barbershops. But here's the cringe. Jerry curls required constant maintenance. We're talking activator spray, dripping chemicals, stained pillowcases, and a strong smell that lingered like regret. People loved the shine until it ruined your couch. Looking cool came with a cost, and for anyone sitting behind a Jerry curl in class or on the bus, you learned the hard way. That curl dripped on everything. 3. Clapping to turn off the lights. The clapper. Clap on, clap off as the clapper. That jingle was stuck in everyone's head. In theory, the clapper was futuristic. Clap your hands and your lights turned off. Clap again. They turned on. Magic! In reality, it turned your house into a chaotic symphony of false triggers. Laugh too hard? Lights go out. Drop something? Lights come on. Have pets? Good luck keeping the room dark. It felt like living with a ghost that had bad timing. But back then, we thought this was the future. Now, we cringe at how easily impressed we were by what was basically a glorified sound switch. 4. Tanning with baby oil. Forget sunscreen. Baby oil was the weapon of choice. In the 1980s, a golden tan wasn't just a look, it was a status symbol. The deeper the tan, the cooler you were. So what did people do? They skipped SPF, grabbed baby oil, and baked themselves under the sun like human rotisserie chickens. Some even laid out with reflective sunboards to cook both sides evenly. It was less about safety and more about looking like you'd just come back from Malibu, even if you hadn't left your driveway. The cringe? Decades later, those sun-kissed tans turned into sun-damaged skin, and dermatologists are still making a fortune from those 1980s decisions. 5. The infamous rat tail. Haircut business in the front. Tiny, sad tail in the back. The rat tail was one of the strangest hairstyle choices of the 1980s. Kids, and even some adults, rocked clean-cut hair with a single skinny strand left long, dangling like a badge of rebellion, or poor judgment. Sometimes braided, sometimes dyed, occasionally beaded. Always cringe. It didn't matter if you were a third grader or a grown man. The rat tail said, "I'm edgy, but only on this one tiny patch of my head." Looking back, it's amazing how confident people were while walking around with what looked like a hair extension for a lizard. 6. Fanny packs. As fashion. In the 80s, nothing said style like a nylon pouch strapped to your waist. And yes, they were called fanny packs, because nothing says cool like referencing your butt in a fashion accessory. Tourists wore them, fitness junkies wore them, even celebrities rocked them over windbreakers and neon spandex. The cringe? They were always bulging, awkwardly bouncing as you walked, making every outfit look like it had a weird growth around the stomach. People treated them like portable vaults for gum, film rolls, and traveler's checks. And yet they were the easiest thing to steal from. Today, they've made a comeback, but back then it wasn't ironic. It was dead serious style. 7. Aerobics. Everything. The 1980s weren't just about getting fit. They were about doing it in day-glow colors and excessive enthusiasm. Aerobics took over living rooms, gyms, and TV screens. Everyone had a VHS tape starring someone like Jane Fonda yelling, "Feel the burn," while bouncing in a leotard, leg warmers, and a glittery sweatband. People danced like it was a musical number to get in shape. Even if you weren't into fitness, the pressure to participate was intense. Workplaces had aerobics break rooms. Schools showed workout videos during PE. Even your grandma probably owned a stepmaster. Cringe level? High, because nothing's more 1980s than aggressive fitness mixed with synth music and glitter. 8. Synth music in every commercial. If the 1980s had a soundtrack, it would be laser beams and drum machines. Synthesizers were everywhere, especially in TV commercials. Whether it was selling breakfast cereal or car insurance, everything was backed by robotic beeps, digital whooshes, and bass lines that sounded like a space invasion. And those jingles? Unforgettable. Not because they were good, but because they lodged themselves into your brain like musical malware. New and improved. Now, with extra crunch. All delivered by some guy pretending he was in Tron. We thought it sounded futuristic. Now it sounds like your microwave is having a meltdown. 9. The neon obsession. If the 1980s had a dress code, it was simple. Be seen from space. Neon green, neon pink, neon yellow. Worn all at once, preferably with Zubaz pants or a windbreaker that could blind a bat. Clothing didn't just pop, it screamed. You couldn't walk through a mall without getting a migraine from someone's outfit. From shoelaces to scrunchies to plastic jewelry the size of small appliances, the brighter, the better. Why did we do it? To stand out? To glow under black lights? To match our Lisa Frank folders? All of the above. And now, looking back, we're amazed anyone had retinas left by 1990. 10. Robotic toy commercials. If you grew up in the 80s, you didn't just watch cartoons. You were bombarded with robot-voiced toy commercials every 5 minutes. The announcers shouted like they were in a war zone. New from Hasbro, it's the Ultra Battle Tank with laser power. And the toys. Usually rolled 3 inches, made a clicking noise, and then fell over. But the commercials made them look like they were going to save the world. Cue slow-motion explosions, sound effects ripped from Star Wars, and kids playing with more excitement than any real child has ever shown. It was over-the-top, aggressive marketing that tricked us into begging for plastic that barely worked. But back then, that was enough to make Christmas morning feel like a military operation. 11. Perfume ads that made no sense. In the 1980s, perfume ads weren't just commercials. They were miniature fever dreams. Imagine a woman running across a beach, in slow motion, wearing a silk gown, chased by a horse, while a mysterious voice whispers, "Obsession," for men. What did it smell like? Who knows? But apparently it made you irresistible, dramatic, and always slightly damp from ocean spray. Perfume ads had zero plot, all mystery. There were doves, mirrors, shadows, fog machines, anything but logic, and the cringe. We all watched them and thought, this must be what adulthood feels like. Spoiler, it wasn't. 12. The rise of novelty. Answering machines. Before voicemail, the 80s gave us the glory and the horror of answering machines. But not just any recordings. We're talking customized novelty intros that made you wish the beep came sooner. We're not home right now, but leave a message tonight. Or the classic, you've reached the Smiths, or have you? Followed by spooky laughter. People spent hours recording skits, song parodies, or bad impressions of celebrities. It was like SNL, but if your uncle wrote it, friends were embarrassed. Job interviewers were confused. Telemarketers hung up. It was creative, yes, but mostly it was secondhand embarrassment on a cassette tape. 13. TV intros that took forever. In the 1980s, every TV show came with a theme song marathon. Before the story even started, you had to sit through 90 seconds of pure cheese. Montages of people turning dramatically, waving from a porch, or freeze-framing mid-laugh while their name flashed on screen. You take the good, you take the bad. Everywhere you look, there's a heart. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. These intros were catchy, yes, but also way too long. Sometimes, by the time the show actually began, you forgot what you were watching. Nowadays, we skip intros. Back then, we sang along, even when we hated it. 14. Overuse of glitter in literally everything. If the 1980s had a national material, it would have been glitter. Clothing, glitter, makeup, glitter, greeting cards, absolutely covered. School art projects, you couldn't escape it. Even toys and stickers came with built-in sparkle explosions like every child was training to be a Vegas performer. It didn't matter what the product was. Someone thought, let's make it shiny, and once it was on you, it never came off. You'd find glitter in your hair, your sandwich, your socks. Weeks later. We called it fun. But let's be honest, it was the herpes of craft supplies. 15. Terrible public service announcements, PSAs. The 1980s were full of PSAs, and most of them were so cringe, they probably caused more confusion than help. Remember this one. This is your brain. Egg cracks into a pan. This is your brain on drugs. Sizzle. Any questions? Yes, so many questions. Others featured cartoon mascots scolding kids about safety, like Smokey Bear saying, "Only you can prevent forest fires," as if an 8-year-old was wandering the woods with a flamethrower. And don't forget McGruff the crime dog growling, "Take a bite out of crime," while wearing a trench coat like a shady detective. They meant well, but often came off like fever dreams wrapped in awkward animation and bad voiceovers. 16. Terribly misguided exercise. Trends before CrossFit or Peloton, the 80s had sweatbands, leg warmers, and neon spandex. It was the golden age of aerobics, where every living room turned into a disco-themed gym thanks to VHS tapes. Jane Fonda, Richard Simmons, and random instructors with mullets shouted, "Feel the burn," while doing moves that looked more like dance-offs than workouts. But the real kicker? Half of the routines didn't make medical sense. Jumping jacks and roller skates, stretching with a chair and a water bottle, and let's not forget the Thigh Master, or the bizarre shake-weight prototypes of the time. It wasn't fitness, it was performance art. Cringe now, cardio then. 17. The obsession with slime toys. In the 80s, kids were handed buckets of goo and told, "Here, this is a toy." Enter slime, bright green, sticky, cold, and absolutely pointless. It didn't bounce, it didn't shape, it just oozed. But that didn't stop the toy companies. They packaged it in fake toilets. They added eyeballs and worms. They even made Ghostbusters slime that would leak out of the toy's mouth like some kind of radioactive drool. Every kid had one. Every parent regretted it. Slime got in carpets, clothes, hair, and good luck getting it out without scissors. It was the toy version of a bad decision. Fun for 5 seconds, regret for days. 18. Incredibly awkward dating game shows. Long before dating apps, the 80s served up romance on a stage with curtains and cheesy music. Welcome to The Dating Game, Love Connection, and the wonderfully cringe fest that was Studs. 3 strangers would answer scripted questions like, "If you were a dessert, what would you be and why?" And the answers, always way too suggestive for daytime TV. Hosts wore oversized tuxedos, contestants rocked feathered hair and polyester, and the love matches often ended in awkward hugs and zero chemistry. Watching it now feels like seeing your aunt flirt with a stranger at a wedding. Uncomfortable, entertaining, and absolutely stuck in time. 19. Obnoxious novelty ringtones and toy phones. Before smartphones, phones in the 80s were loud, wired, and ridiculous. You had phones shaped like lips, hamburgers, or Garfield the cat. They didn't just ring. They screamed, barked, meowed, or played disco tunes when someone called. Kids had Fisher-Price toy phones with spinning dials, googly eyes, and a creepy smile that stared into your soul. Even adults got in on the chaos, adding recorded voice messages like, "Hi, you've reached Bob. I'm not home, but my answering machine is." It was voicemail before voicemail, and 100% cringe by today's standards. Back then, it was cool. Now it's just a noisy relic of questionable taste. 20. Weirdly specific scented products. In the 80s, everything had a scent, and most of it made 0 sense. You had scratch and sniff stickers that smelled like popcorn, gasoline, or, why, wet dog. Markers came in fruit flavors which somehow encouraged kids to sniff their homework. Even dolls were scented. Remember Strawberry Shortcake and her sugary sweet plastic perfume? She smelled like a cupcake that had been left in a toy box for 3 years. There were scented erasers, scented nail polish, scented shoelaces. Yes, shoelaces. The motto seemed to be, if it exists, make it smell like a fruit or a chemical fire. 21. The infamous baby on board craze. In the mid-80s, one yellow sign took over America. Baby on board. It started as a safety idea, but quickly became a cultural meme before memes existed. Suddenly, every car had a baby on board suction sign. Even people without kids slapped them on for attention. And of course, the backlash began. Cue the sarcastic spin-offs. Mother-in-law on board. Alien on board. Nobody on board. It became less about protecting kids and more about joining a weird trend. You'd see it next to fuzzy dice, bumper stickers, and that one Garfield plush clinging to the rear window. An entire decade, defined by a triangle of plastic. And there you have it. 21 of the cringiest things from the 1980s that somehow seemed perfectly normal at the time. From plastic fashion statements to phone calls that barked at you, we laughed, we cringed, and we remembered a decade that truly had no chill. If you grew up in the 80s, tell us in the comments. Which of these did you actually own? Or secretly loved? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more vintage throwbacks. Until next time, this is Faded into History, where the past is never too far behind.